he recognizes how much harder it is to land our love for one another in blended families, because you have trust that you have to build, right? You have a new dynamic, you have old wounds, more people that, different loyalties that people are holding, confusion. There's just so much that comes with being a blended family. Hello, folks. We are going to do a book review today, and I'm really looking for this, because this is a book on the 5 love languages, but for blended families. So today we're going to review this book, Building Love Together in Blended Families, by Dr. Gary Chapman and Ron Deal, and it is based on the 5 love languages that Dr. Chapman wrote about. But then Ron Deal is a blended family, step family expert. So you get these two guys together talking about what does it look like to build really deep love in family when it's complicated. So
no matter the dynamics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And small book, easy to read or listen.
Yeah.
I did both. I read and listened. And so much wisdom in this little thing. Wow.
Absolutely loved this book. Also, before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can stay up to date on all of our podcasts, our Christian reviews. And I'm just going to give a little sneak peek that Inez has been doing some teachings, and you're going to be seeing them soon. So make sure to be involved in that. But on top of that, it's also our way of knowing that the content we're providing is content that you guys want to keep seeing. So it helps us as a nonprofit do that for you. So make sure to do those things, and let's go ahead and start talking about this book.
Yeah, so good. As I was writing my book that's coming up next year, I read this book and I incorporate some of the material in here. But I was so encouraged because, we've been in a blended family for over 20 years.
Yeah.
I'd never had read a book on step families or blended families until this process of writing a book, which I think, well, that was foolish, Inez. Here you're doing something so hard, and you never went out to see what people were writing about. So, okay, I confess that was foolish. But now that I'm reading some of these books, not only am I feeling a bit affirmed that some of the things we did was well done, and I'm thinking that some of the people that helped us, that encouraged Jim and I or gave us wisdom, they probably read these books and told us about it. But also that, obviously the Holy Spirit was guiding us. But then there are new things I learned through this book that were super helpful. So even though we've been at it for 20 years, we've learned a lot. There was more to learn in this book.
Yeah, it's interesting because I listen to nonfiction books every single week. So I feel like there's a lot of books that I know well about all sorts of things, like I'm a equal opportunity learner. Like I just like learning about things, even in spaces I don't work in. But that is such a good point that I also have not picked up that many blended family books until we started doing this podcast and we were reading them together. And then I was like, man, there's a lot of wisdom in here. I think I also kind of went off of this concept of, well, I'm living it, number one. And number two, I have you and so many other people in your circle that have spoken into our life about like ways to manage blended families well. But this book gave me so many tips and pointers where I was like, man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Like, there's so many pieces. So to kind of go into detail about this book and what it covers and all of the different pieces, the contents are really about the love languages. So if you haven't done the love language test, with your family, it's a good thing to do. And what he pointed out about the love languages that I found so fascinating was that he was saying that you have the kids do it for each parent. Because what you receive as love from your parent versus your step parent versus your siblings may actually look different, especially in those younger kid years.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Because you could want something different from each parent, essentially.
Yes.
Even though you may have a primary love language, it will look different depending on the parent that's giving it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting because I was like, that actually makes so much sense. Like Ryan, my older daughter, does prefer physical contact with her dad, my husband, but doesn't necessarily, that's not necessarily what she seeks from me, unless she's having a hard time. What she seeks from me is quality time. She really desires that I'm paying attention to her, that I'm engaged with her, that I'm talking to her, and we're just kind of having that kind of conversation. And so I thought that's really interesting that those I would never have connected those dots if it hadn't been for this book.
So good. Well, let's mention, because I don't want to assume that people have read there is a book by Dr. Gary Chapman that talks about the 5 love languages, but I just want to mention what those 5, you've mentioned a couple already, but what the 5 love languages are. That's page 35 of the book. So words of affirmation, right? Speaking words that encourage, that affirm, that share with people like what you think of them, all that really good stuff, compliments, etc. Quality time.
Yep.
That sounds like what you're, Ryan.
Ryan, Kenny, and I are all quality time.
Quality time, right? Someone really like focusing on you, paying attention, listening well, playing games together, being in the same room.
Just
even
being in the same space.
Yeah.
I'm big, just like you can do what you do and I'll do what I do, but I just want to sit on the same couch.
Yeah. You know? But quality time can be different for everybody.
Totally.
So that's good. Gifts or receiving gifts, or either giving gifts or receiving gifts. That's pretty simple, right? Yeah. Buying things for someone. Acts of service, doing things to help one another, and physical touch.
Yes.
Which could be anything from holding hands, like if, maybe one. Well, Mackenzie, she likes it when you rub her legs.
Mackenzie's a physical touch girl. It's like one of her main things. Like she likes to be not just in your space, quality time, but like she likes to be on you.
Yeah.
And she's always been that way.
Yes. Lots of hugs and kisses, physical touch. And of course, in marriage, physical touch goes through further. So those are the 5 love languages. And in this book, he has the assessment. Yeah. So you can do the assessment here. Did you do the assessment, Kate?
I didn't, because I've done it before. So I know my love languages. Okay. And I will say that what's so interesting is when I do the test, it's one thing, but when I actually am like in a committed relationship, when I'm married, that test looks a little bit different. So I redid it when I was married to Anthony, when I got married, and then it helped me direct too. Okay. Also, for those who have not read the 5 love languages book, a really good caveat is your love language that you give best may not be the same thing that you receive. It often can be this similar, but it is a really good acknowledgement. Some people really like to receive gifts, but maybe they're not very good at giving gifts, because giving gifts isn't just buying. It also can be like gifts of the way, like something they make. It can be very simple, but it's just there's a thoughtfulness that comes into gift giving that is unique, and as a specific love language. So I thought that was kind of interesting and a good caveat. Again, if you haven't read the 5 love languages book, it'd be a good one to read even before going into this book, because I think it does give so much context.
It does, right. So I did it here. I had never done it before, but I had a sense.
Really?
Yeah, but I had a sense, I think. And I was right when I did it was spot on.
Yeah.
For me, as far as the language, the love language, or how I feel most loved, is really what that means when you say, what is my love language to receive, is when for me is acts of service. So when people do things to help me, to equip me, to make my life easier, or whatever, to join me in my work, like you and I work together, it's an act of service. I feel loved.
So interesting.
I feel most loved that way. And I also prefer to love with acts of service. So that for me, it's both. It's the easiest love language for me to express, because, well, first of all, I love receiving it. Yeah. And so I want to give it back to others.
Was words of affirmation a high one for you, though, too?
No. Well, not high, but it was, kind of in the middle. Yeah. My lowest? Receiving gifts.
I could tell. Yeah, we're the same in that. I'm gift giving is like stresses me out. Yeah. And then I feel like I owe someone. It's like, it's the opposite. It's like not even enjoyable,
So, okay, well, part of what I was, kind of, we haven't gotten to the blended family piece yet, but part of what I was reflecting upon, and he does touch on this a little bit, and that is, if someone's experience, a past experience with a parent or, a trauma, whatever, affects their love language. To say, for example, they have a trauma where their physical body, was abused. Yeah. Right? They have some sort of physical abuse. Well, then, even if physical touch was at one point their love language to receive, that's become tarnished. Yeah. So now, even if physical touch would be sort of a deep desire, there is a fear of receiving physical touch because of that trauma.
I am so excited to bring to you my Christian reviews of regular books. My Christian reviews of regular books go over fiction books and if a fellow believer may or may not want to be reading them. You can do so by heading to our YouTube channel and checking out all of the different reviews that I've done. Now, I read over 200 books a year, and that is so that I can give you the most amount of information possible so that you can decide if the book is right for you. Go ahead and check it out on our YouTube channel.
So for me, I think receiving gifts is an example of that. So I used to receive gifts when I was a little girl from my godfather, and he came one time and gave me a Tonka truck. I mean, which is a big deal. We didn't have purchased toys.
Yeah.
And he purchased a toy and brought it, big Tonka truck, the only purchased toy in our house. The rest of the time we played with lizards and rocks and sticks and climbed trees.
Yeah.
But when that thing showed up at our house, it was like, wow. Mm-hmm. And the next question was, who are you to receive this? Why are you getting this? You're number 6 of 7. So that was not the last gift. I received about 6 gifts from him. A chalkboard one time. He brought me a chalkboard. He brought me a Barbie and a Ken when those things came out. It just created an uproar in our house because why is Inés receiving these things? She shouldn't be getting this. You don't deserve this. That meant for me receiving gifts triggers this sort of narrative. You don't deserve this. You shouldn't be getting gifts. So I just prefer not to receive them. I just don't. It triggers that in my mind, so I prefer not to go there.
Yeah.
But you do something for me, I'm happy.
That's so funny. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting because my main one is physical touch. Like I'm physical touch, but it's right in line. Like I think it was like 1 point off with quality time. So those are my top 2, and they do go hand in hand for me. And I am like rubbing your back, holding your hand. Like I can be so upset. And then Anthony can just put his arms around me and I'm like, oh, okay, I feel better now. Thanks. That's all I needed. It's like, it just helps kind of break down for me whatever frustration or emotion is like going on that feels negative. Words of affirmation is more of a receive. Like I like to receive words of affirmation, but I feel like I'm terrible at giving them. Like I feel like I don't know how and when to really do it well, that it doesn't end up feeling cheesy or over the top. And gift giving is 100% like just way down there. Yeah. And for me, like I said earlier, for me, it really is like, I feel like I then owe something back. Like words of affirmation, I don't feel like I owe back. I feel like I can give that to you and done. Or you can give that to me and I can just accept that as is. Thank you so much, But a gift, even in the context of like, oh, it's my birthday, so that makes sense. It feels like, oh, well, now I have to return that, like in a way of showing you that I appreciate the gift,
So going back to kind of like how they talk about it, and I experienced it. One of my desired love language, sort of get twisted. Yeah, at least brought really low on the list. Yeah, to the point I only had 1 point. I mean, it's bad. Was there any for you that got sort of changed because of an experience, and in particular, because of divorce or being in a blended family? Were any of those affected?
Well, when I was single, and this is when I did the test originally, I actually felt immense shame at the concept of physical touch being my like top love language. And I think that was because I was physically abused during the course of my previous marriage. And so it felt weird. Then I felt like I was, it wasn't connected in like a healthy way. So that was one that really changed for me. Gift giving was never a big thing even before that. I've just never been a big gift giver. Maybe because we as a family were never really big on gift giving. We were practical gift givers. Yes. It's like you need this.
My mom modeled that.
Yeah, totally. It's like it's just kind of so then when people do things that are above and beyond, I have a friend who is like an incredible gift giver. It's like one of her main love languages. And I feel like I can never give a good gift, truly. Like I just feel like I don't know. I can't think through that, just doesn't go in my head. But additionally, when she gifts me, then I feel like, well, now I owe you something. You know what I mean? Like I have to show you how much I appreciate it, and it feels really foreign. Yeah. So I definitely think that's like a little bit part of it. I have never been a receiver very well of acts of service. I think I have a hard time recognizing it as a love. It's not that it's like super low, but I'm a big giver of acts of service. And that was definitely also attributed to my husband is 100% an acts of service guy. Like that is his main love language. In fact,
he gives.
Yeah, he'll give. And in fact, to the point where if someone says like, oh, well, they would never say it like this, but let's say someone said to him, like, I don't feel loved by you. His response is, well, look at all the different acts of service that I've tried to do to show you that I love you. You know, like he really does try to, that he's like, this is how I show you I care. It's so clear for him. And so that's been a really interesting process walking into a blended family with someone in that dynamic. Cause it's like, I see him do it with the kids too. Like he's really trying to show them like, I love you.
By my actions.
By my actions, by like, you know, making sure that I have, and that like comes into like making sure that I have a good enough job that provides for this home. It feels like a massive act of service for him of like, look, this is me showing you how much I love you and care for you, that I want to take care of you and make sure you're safe, you know, and do that. So it's like very interesting to see this shift. And then acknowledge that is his way of showing me he loves me. So don't personalize it. Don't be upset when that love isn't maybe like the main way I receive it, right? But just knowing, oh, that's how you're showing me you love me. And I'm very grateful for that.
So this is what's really cool about the combination of these two experts coming together. So Gary Chapman, of course, writing about the 5 love languages, which is for every relationship, where, you know, how you learn to give love, how do you identify how people receive love, so that your love lands in their heart, right? Like if you're doing acts of service for someone who really needs quality time for you, it's always going to feel like it's falling flat, and you're going to be frustrated because I'm showing you all this love, but you still tell me you don't feel loved. Oh, that's because I'm supposed to give you quality time. So I love that he did that, right? And then here's Ron Deal, who writes about step families, blended families, and he recognizes how much harder it is to land our love for one another in blended families, because you have trust that you have to build, right? You have a new dynamic, you have old wounds, more people that, you know, different loyalties that people are holding, confusion. There's just so much that comes with being a blended family. So now you take the same love language system and you now apply it to a blended family. And I love that they recognize, okay, it looks a little different in a blended family. And like you said, it's different with every parent.
Yes.
Yeah. Or maybe the different relationships in a blended family.
Yeah.
Yes.
He said something through this book that I thought was one of the best statements he made, which is really explaining the difference between full blood siblings or family members, half siblings, or, you know, it's really only for siblings, and then step parents and siblings. And that the reason why those delineations are so different is because of how they are impacted. That a lot of times half siblings tend to feel like they're still a family member. So if you have the sibling, like the blood sibling, me and my sister,
both parents.
We both have the same parents. We were raised together. We did all of the same back and forths together because we were all part of it, right? That I have the most willingness to forgive and move on with her because she is my blood. There is like a deeply ingrained, that's what he was explaining. There's like this deeply ingrained awareness.
Almost biological.
Yeah, that like, and even though, you know, now I think there's this whole movement of you don't have to live by this like biological expectation, but it's still a deeply ingrained knowledge that like, this is my blood sister. So I will forgive her easier. I see and understand her a little bit easier. I can understand her love languages and what she's doing a little bit easier. There's more forgiveness. A half sibling kind of falls similar to that, especially if it's a half sibling that spends a lot of time in the same home as the sibling,
which you have as well.
Which I have as well. So,
you have all. And
I have all of them, and so that's why I was like, this is a good example. So I have my brother, who is my half brother, but he was basically raised by you and my dad. He went and saw his birth father like once a month,
or every other week. Or something.
Yeah, it was. I think it was even, at least when I was a little older, it was like once a month for a little while, you know, and so. We got kind of used to, yes, he's pretty much here all the time. And once when I think I was like 7 or 8, I called him my stepbrother, not understanding step, half, etc. And he got his feelings so hurt, and he went to you and he was like, she said, and you had to sit me down and be like, he's not. he is your brother, period, full stop. We only use this language of like half sibling because he has a different dad, but he is your brother, period. And so I feel like there's also that same, like I look at my brother is my brother. Like I don't question it. I don't worry about it. Like he is, I give him the same, in a lot of ways, I give him the same grace. I don't even really, sometimes, and I don't mean this in a poor way, but sometimes I even forget, oh yeah, you have two other siblings, with your dad's side. So it's like, that to me is very similar. And that's what, he really explains, Ron Deal really explains that forgiveness and empathy and compassion and understanding in those two dynamics really consists.
It's a little more natural, more quicker.
Yes. Yeah. But that then you bring in the step. And now you have such a separation between them that you are quicker to get angry. You are quicker to keep them away. It takes a lot longer for you to build that dynamic of trust and relationship, and to truly believe the best in them. And I have two stepsisters. And although I think me and my stepsisters have a great relationship, we get along, I am honest, and I think so are they, that like what that looks like in my relationship with them versus what it looks like in my relationship with Melissa, my sister, are different. It's like Melissa and I talk every single day, all the time, no matter what. Like
and they do as
and
well. They talk to each other. They're
all
very
the time.
close.
Yeah.
They can get extremely angry at each other.
And
you think, oh my goodness, they're never going to make up, and they make up.
Yeah.
They have such a strong bond.
Yeah.
That is stronger than any other bond.
Totally.
I see it in them too.
Yeah. And so it's this awareness of the shifts.
Yes.
And so he really like deep dived into those dynamics and how they impact. And then you bring in, now let's talk step parent.
Yes.
Okay. And especially if you have the other birth parent still in the picture,
present,
right? Still involved, still aware. So like that's Jim being my step parent versus my dad, who was still present my whole life, And so yes, I had more forgiveness, understanding, and willingness to deal with my dad. I could be super angry at him, frustrated at, disagree with everything he was telling me. And at the end of the day, he was still my dad, and that wasn't going to go away. Versus Jim, who I struggled with. And now I have a beautiful relationship with Jim, and 20 something years of your relationship has also built in me a consistency, a steadiness, like that he'll always be in my life, no matter what, he'd always be in my life. But that took time to develop that strength and bond. So I think this explanation that he explained in the book really did also give me some grace and like language to the dynamics that people go through within that blended family.
Yeah, so good. One of the things they talk about is how important is the core parent relationship. So say, for example, in our case, my relationship with Jim.
Yeah.
How important that the health of that relationship dictates how the rest of the family can blend. So if the parents who started a blended family are not getting along, their marriage is struggling, then other people won't trust, won't be eager to take risk or sacrifice to build deeper bonds because, if this isn't going to last, why am I going to put all this effort, in this relationship? It's not easy to do. So to me, I felt like it was really good. And thankfully, some people told us that early in our relationship. I mean, early, we were actually still, before we got married, someone said, your relationship has to be number one. If you build a strong relationship, your family will be able to build a relationship. You create an environment for that. So that was a great recommendation in the book that affirmed what someone told us earlier. But I couldn't recommend it more because you wouldn't take those risks. You wouldn't press hard to build a relationship across that line, right, into step kids, if you didn't believe that this relationship was here to stay.
Totally.
Yeah. Or with that step parent.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think there is like so many aspects that they really address in here that do exactly that. They show so much that I think was really powerful. The other things that they really talk about is meeting each of those kids where they're at and recognizing that it would look different. Right. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think that is, unfortunately, it's a much higher uphill battle for the step parent in that involvement because they really do have to choose, this isn't my kid. This isn't like, I don't have full, right. At the end of the day, I don't have full access. Neither of you do in that relationship because they also go to another parent's house and they're there. And so I have to just be as present and loving and wise as I can be in the midst of this relationship when you're here and when you're able. And so I thought just so much of that conversation throughout this book was so well done and really helped me with my husband and how, I mean, I'm going to make him read this book because I feel like there's so much in that. Yeah, he hasn't yet, but he loves audiobooks, and I definitely got this one on Audible so that I could like share it with him because it's so good. And I do think it just brings so much context into, okay, like it's not a snuff of a kid to a step parent that they need a different way to be loved, you know, and it's not an attack or a negative thing. It doesn't mean they love you any less. They're receiving differently, you know? And again, as I've shared many times on this podcast, our dynamic is different. Our dynamic looks like they're in our home all the time. They're being adopted by their stepdad, you know? They call him dad. They see him as dad. But that doesn't take away the memories they have of their birth father who was around and present for a time in their lives. And trying to I still see them trying to figure out where that dynamic is and like, okay, is this dad gonna stick around?
Right.
You know, is this dad gonna be a permanent fixture forever? Like me and my husband got into a conversation and we got heated, and Ryan peeks out her head from the corner and she goes, "Are you guys fighting?" And I said, "We're having a heated conversation and we're okay. It's okay for us to do that. And what you're going to see on the other end of this conversation is that we're going to come through it and everyone's going to be okay." That's
beautiful. You know, that actually happened to Jim and I and Melissa.
Oh.
Joe and I were in the kitchen one time having, you know, we can get very heated. Oh my gosh, can we get heated? And that wasn't an argument. We were talking fast and loud and whatever, passionate, but not arguing.
Yeah.
We have argued, don't get me wrong. But that time it wasn't.
Yeah.
And she did. She came in the kitchen and goes, are you guys arguing? Are you fighting?
Yeah.
You know, she seemed really stressed about it.
Yeah.
And so, I think it is a fear that
Yeah.
kids have. Like, okay, is this going to break? I've seen it.
Right.
And I think kids who never experienced divorce, it doesn't even come in their mind that it could happen.
Well, you know,
until it does.
I'll challenge that though, because when I was growing up, I very vividly remember asking you and my dad multiple times, like, "Oh, I heard you guys fighting. Are you going to get divorced?"
But remember, I was divorced before and you knew
so
that.
maybe that's why. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. That
So
makes
there was
sense.
already that on the table. I doubt that most people
Even
go
go
there
there.
first.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they do if there's a very volatile relationship.
Yeah. But I also wonder too if part of it is because it's become so common.
Probably true.
You know, like
or they have friends who have divorced.
Right,
And
that's
then
it,
they come
yeah.
home and go, "Mom and Dad,
are you going to do that?"
Yes,
Right? Like
yes.
I've seen
Did
this
that happen to us?
Yeah.
Okay. In one of the chapters, he talked about these triangles having to do with how we are. No one is. You don't love people in isolation.
Yeah.
I mean, if I love you, I have, say, for example, Melissa, you know, my stepdaughters, my son, them to think about, like, how do I love you? And also, you know, make sure they don't feel unloved. Like one example was if one of your kids, for example, let's say a stepchild is, their love language is receiving gifts. And you give them gifts. There's an example in the book.
Yeah.
And you give them gifts because you want to show them your love. But your biological child, their love language is quality time. You give them quality time. But they're watching you give gifts to the stepchild all the time. And even though that's not their love language, because a gift is such a tangible thing, they might feel like, wait, what's happening here? You're giving them all the gifts. Are you trying to buy their love? When in reality, you're trying to love each person according to their love.
Yeah.
So that's a love triangle where sometimes how you love one person is affected by how you are loving another.
Yeah.
And boy, that gets very complicated. And in a step family, he has a little diagram here that has all the love triangles that are connected to one another. So there's a higher complication. This is why it's hard. And I encourage you, if you're in a blended family and you're having a hard time, you're not alone. And it is hard. It can be very hard. And the beauty of this book is that he points us to Jesus and to God's way of loving, that we can trust God to help us in those complicated times. That you're not alone. You're not terrible. You're not a terrible parent. You're not a failure. You're not going to fail because you're struggling. You can get through it. I just want to point that out because I feel like knowing the problem is one thing, but then you can feel hopeless.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think also when you're dealing with kids, at least I see this with my kids, and maybe my kids are the only one, but like I see a lot of comparison in general. How I love which they're sisters, you know what I mean? But like how I love one of them then is like, well, you did this for them. Why aren't you doing that for me? You know? And there's like a lot of comparison even between the two of them. And that's like not even connected to a step or blended family aspect. So I can only imagine now adding in a blended family, like a whole layer with now someone else coming in and maybe step siblings coming in or half siblings coming in and feeling like, well, that's not what I got. You know, my older daughter all the time will tell me quite regularly, like, well, I couldn't do that at that age. And now Kenny gets to do it. And I have to say, like, you're right. You're right. I'm a different parent than I was 2 years ago when you were that age. And I have different rules and expectations. And that probably doesn't feel good, but that's where we are, you know?
Well, it's interesting because with the love languages and the idea that each person has a different way of receiving, giving, all that, and depending on your situations, and the gift of time and change that we all experience. I had heard someone say before, every child has, even though you have one parent, one mom, for example, but every child has a different mom.
Yep.
Right. But then you add these layers to it, you realize, oh yeah, of course you do.
Even
because
more
there's so much.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so beautiful and a little complicated, but also beautiful in that we are such complex human beings. We're somewhat predictable because we know what our love languages are, but there's so much that goes into this.
Yeah.
It's just we can give ourselves a lot of grace.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're not going to figure it out right away. They talk about this over and over again. It takes time.
Right.
It takes time.
Yeah.
And in our family, that has been
so true.
Yeah.
Proven. Yeah.
Proven.
I think so. We had a therapist, the girl's therapist had told me when I started dating my now husband, she said it takes about 6 months for adults to fall in love and create that bond that feels secure. 6 months. Even if you're like, you know, you get all that infatuation, but it takes your brain about 6 months to like catch up and truly feel secured. It takes children a year. And so she goes, you're going to start seeing these changes where all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, he's still there. Oh yeah, I now want to change like what I call him. Oh, now, you know, so they start to experience this. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like just the trust aspect and like you're stable, so then I believe you're going to keep being stable. It takes about a year, but then add in literally anything, right? Which you guys were coming in up against a pretty big wave when you became a family. Yes. And now you're fighting against even more than that. You had to come through healing first. Yes. And then after that healing started, it took a year of like, oh no, I'm still here and I'm still going to love you where you're at in this time frame.
That's right. Yeah. And I think they talk about 5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go over all of these because I know we're going quite long, but there is a section here about 5 P's of step parenting. Partner with your spouse, pursue the kids, pursue the relationships, pace yourself because this is a long-term thing. Be patient, practice patience and be persistent. Don't give up. And even there's a section back here about how do you deal with, you do all the right things and it's not reciprocated. Like when there's a person that you try and try and try and they will not come to the table. And the way that they talk about that is to simply remain faithful. Do your part. You just keep doing your part. Maybe it'll change. Maybe it won't. But it's better to do your part and you feel like at least you are pouring out.
Yeah.
And there's a piece associated with that. I'm doing everything I can. Right? That's all I can control. And who knows? Maybe one day something will turn.
In a way, that's kind of like parenthood as a whole, right? Like at the end of the day, we as parents have to love our kids fully. And sometimes we are going to put in a lot of work and our kids are still going to be mad at us, struggle with us, go away we were not wanting them to go, and we have to continue to stay persistent in our love for them. And I think that's so true for step parents. It's just probably elevated one notch because that persistence is, in fairness, also met with a step parent with that same feeling that it is with a step kid to the step parent, which is like, I need to know that you're actually going to stick around, right? There's this little bit of like, how much do I have to prove myself as a step parent that I'm sure feels a little bit hard at times. But this reminder is so helpful to be like,
that big question. Do you love me? Are you really?
Yeah.
So in page 170, he says, keep loving, keep that slow blending process going.
Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Don't stop. Keep doing it. And over time, you'll see the fruit. Okay.
So that reminded me
Okay.
of our passage
Yeah,
for
yeah.
today.
Okay, let's go
which
there.
is John 6. It's the very beginning of John 6. It's actually John 6, verse 1. I could get to John here. Hold on. I know where it is. Okay. So John 6 is the passage about how Jesus feeds the 5,000, right? And he, I'll read it to you and then we can talk about it. So it says, after this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias, and a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes then and seeing that a large crowd was coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He said this to test them, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?"
Let's pause there, right? So this little boy has very little food that's not going to feed all these people.
5,000 people.
Right?
Yeah.
And then what happens in the story is that Jesus says, have everybody sit down, gather in little groups, and then he takes his bread. So jump into, where he goes into that. When there was plenty of grass in place, so people sat down. Verse 11, then Jesus.
Okay. And just to say this too, what was so interesting, this says 5,000, which you assume 5,000 people, but a lot of times in scripture, it was 5,000 men. So now we're talking about, in addition to the 5,000 men, there was also probably women and children.
Yes.
So you're not just feeding 5,000, which I think is just so crazy when you put those numbers together.
Yeah.
Okay. Verse 11, Jesus then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten.
Yes. So the moral of the story is you give Jesus a little bit and he can multiply it to abundance, to overflowing abundance. And so in this context of the book, right, that whatever little love we can provide, we can muster, building love, one action, one word at a time, one minute or hour of time with someone, one gift at a time, these love languages, acting them out over time. If we trust Jesus with it, he will multiply their effect.
Yeah.
And we can trust him.
Right. And so it's really a super powerful reminder that we don't have to do it alone.
Yes.
That this may feel overwhelming in the context of trying to love your family well, but in reality, you're not doing it alone. Mm-hmm. And you also have the support of your spouse, right, in this situation. Hopefully, if you're married, even with the stepkids and trying to figure it all out, you have that support system of being able to work with your spouse. But additionally, you both have the support system of Jesus, who can take your willingness and your persistence and your faith and multiply that to cover the gaps in your relationships.
You remember some podcast back, we talked about prayer.
Yeah.
Pray, pray, pray.
Yeah.
And these gentlemen also talk about that, the importance of prayer. And what do we do in prayer? We're asking God to help us.
Yeah.
We're giving them our challenges. We're giving them, here's my loaf of bread. Here's the fish I have. This is all I got.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to try my best. And then watch as Jesus multiplies it.
Yeah.
So, yes. My goodness, we didn't even cover everything that's in this book.
Yeah.
It's a short book. So good. So I hope you guys are encouraged to read it. Check it out. Building Love Together in Blended Families by Gary Chapman and Ron Deal.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.